It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it, yes! Caught! Touchdown, did he get it?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker here on the Full Court Press. Big show today. A lot of things breaking and coming across the wire today. Utah State officially releases its non-conference schedule. And then the Mountain West releases its conference schedule. So we got a lot of basketball news to get through today, looking at who's on the schedule, when are certain games played, how does this year compare to last. A few notable teams not on the schedule for Utah State, so we'll get to that. Post-practice audio from Gervin Hall Jr. and Robert Briggs. So kind of an interesting spread there between a graduate senior, a transfer senior, and Gervin Hall, who's played in big-time environments before, and to a true freshman in Robert Briggs. So very different experiences approaching a very big game coming up this Saturday. We'll get to that and to hear from them. And coming up at the top of next hour at 5 o'clock, we'll have a conversation with Utah State head volleyball coach Rob Nielsen. He'll be joining us on the program. Big weekend last weekend and heading into another equally big weekend this weekend. So what's on the schedule, how this team's coming together, we'll have a chance to hear from him coming up next hour. So, and there's also talk that college football playoff may actually expand to 12 games or 12 teams. After all the talk that's been out there, there are reports that they could expand as early as Friday on its final 2 years of its current contract. So a lot of different things to get through here today. We've got football, we got basketball, we got volleyball, a little bit of everything today.
This is what happens when fall hits. All the sports come at you all at once. We're only about a month or so away from the golden time of the year when every major sport is playing at once. So I guess a couple months, month and a half. It's like middle of October.
Yeah.
So
then you get the NHL, NBA, you got Major League Baseball in its playoffs, NFL, college football.
Yeah.
College basketball is starting.
Yeah, just everything. All the major professional sports and a lot of the major college ones, too. So it's that beautiful time of the year when you just don't get to watch everything because there's too much happening almost every single day.
It's impossible. One thing I didn't note in the tease there is that, and maybe we'll lead with this, it was cut down day yesterday in the or Monday in the NFL. Yesterday in the NFL. That's right. Earlier today, it was opportunities for NFL teams to claim available players on waivers. And then late this afternoon, it was time for teams to name their, which players were going to be on their practice squads. So, Jason, any movement from former Aggies? We know Jalen Warren survived cut-down day, former Utah State running back. He's going to stay on with the Steelers. I also noted, I looked this up today, Tipa Naliai and Dallin Levitt survived cut-down day for the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
But Devin Tompkins, Darwin Thompson, and Derek Wright did not make 53-man rosters for the teams that they were on in the preseason. None of them were claimed off waivers, it looked like.
Yeah, I don't believe so. Well, they weren't. I believe so. They weren't because they're all basically staying where they're at. They're just going to be on practice squads. Devin Tompkins making the Buccaneers practice squad, Derek Wright, the Panthers squad, and then Darwin Thompson, who we kind of weren't 100% sure was going to make the Seahawks squad. It looks like he has made their practice squad. So
that's good news.
So none of them are going anywhere. They're just going to hang around on the respective practice squads of the teams they spend the preseason with. So their careers remain intact for now.
Not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. the longer you keep getting to play, so long as these guys want to play, the longer they get to keep playing, then that's good for them.
Guys get injured all the time, and they need to fill a roster spot. And who do they go to first? Guys that they're seeing every day in practice.
Yeah.
Or try to claim somebody who's on the beach. So your chances of getting called up are much better if you're already on a practice squad.
Yeah, especially, some depth positions like running back and wide receiver where you need depth, you need bodies. So there could be an opportunity waiting for these guys. And we spent a lot of time on this yesterday talking about how important just that one opportunity can be. And so far these guys are extending what opportunities they're getting.
Yeah, so that's exciting that there are still opportunities to stay where they are and to be a part of these franchises. We'll continue to keep an eye on it as the season goes on if they do get called up. Now, as we mentioned the other day, you can get called up by another team that you can get poached to be on another team's roster, but that's only if you're going to the active roster. They can take somebody off of somebody else's practice squad, but only if they're going to put them on their active roster.
Yeah, you have to actually sign them to a contract. You can't poach them for the practice squad unless they get released from that other practice squad. And then I'm not sure if they go on waivers if they get cut from the practice squad or not. I don't know if there's a waiver for that.
Ooh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Because these guys could have been claimed off waivers, and once they weren't, they went back to practice squads. There were a couple people that were picked up off waivers, which I was talking to you off the air. I was like, does anybody ever actually claim people off waivers, like ever? Because I felt like I just never heard of it. Didn't really look it up. It's just like I felt like it's always this person, once they clear waivers, yada, yada, yada. And a lot of that has to do with not picking up the contract, because if you pick them up on waivers, you have to pay what contract they were making. That seems to apply more in basketball. In the NFL, the contracts aren't always as huge a deal, but still. You feel like you'd never heard of guys actually getting picked up off of waivers. Although today in the top of the hour, there was somebody who got claimed off waivers, so
yeah,
it does happen.
It does. You're right. It does happen. Not with a lot of regularity.
And probably only around this time of year.
Right. And again, that's usually because there's an injury issue. Somebody that they thought they were going to have something with just doesn't pan out. So.
Or they just coveted somebody else's,
Right.
Maybe somebody had more good wide receivers in their camp than another team, and another team wanted that wide receiver, so they grabbed them. Because there's a lot, they had the cut downs yesterday, but there's still been some movement in the NFL last day or so. A couple cuts, couple moves as teams. Some guys who thought they made the cut then got cut. Really bad Wednesday for a few people.
Yeah, that's true. So, it's not the best news, but it's not bad news.
Yeah,
Put it that way.
It's not the worst news.
Yeah, that's probably better.
The worst news is their career over and they have to, move on, be regular plebs like us that have to watch sports instead of playing them.
Instead of getting paid to play them. Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of the latest on the NFL waiver wire or practice squad issue for some former Utah State Aggies. Current Utah State Aggies trying to take on Goliath on Saturday.
Yeah.
We heard from the coaches and some of the players yesterday. We'll hear more from them today. So we continue to move towards that Saturday evening, late afternoon kickoff for USU on the SEC network, by the way. Way to watch that one.
Got to double check if I actually have the SEC network somewhere. I think I do, but I'm not 100% sure.
I know where you can find it. Here. It'll be on here at the station.
Oh, so maybe I'll come here and
so if you're looking for a place to watch it.
Do you do a watch party here? Well, I guess you do the pre and post game shows, so.
Yeah, so we'll be keeping an eye on it.
I'll come hang out with you guys.
Yeah. Me and Al and Ryan.
You and all like the really experienced guys that are like, I'm just like over here in my corner, like, I've been doing this for like 6 months.
No, that'll be fun. That'll be good. At least I hope it'll be fun.
Hopefully it won't be disastrous.
Well, yes, that's true. A reminder, if you want to weigh in on any of our topics today, Full Court Press text line is open, 435-339-0321. 7966 weighing in, pivoting our discussion to USU men's basketball. It's exciting to finally get the USU men's basketball schedule for the season. Looking at the non-conference schedule, I think we go 12-1, which would set us up great for conference play. A little harder to predict the conference record because I don't know what to expect from some of the teams this season, though I do think it'll be another strong season for the Mountain West overall with 3 or 4 tournament teams. My conference prediction as of right now would probably be 12-6. That would put us at 24-7 overall. And if we can do that, I think we'll be in great position for an at-large NCAA tournament bid. What are your early predictions for the record this coming season?
So I'll say 7966 is a lot more optimistic about the season than I am. While I was very optimistic about Utah State's football season, or at least on the optimistic side, the more I think about it for Utah State basketball, while there are aspects I am excited about, I'm worried about this basketball team for a number of reasons. We can get a lot more detail about that later, but I will give some early predictions. One, I don't think they're going 12-1 in non-conference. It's just text came over, made me laugh.
I'm not looking at the text line right now.
Sorry. It just threw me off because I looked right at it as I was about to make my point. So just eyeballing the non-conference schedule, I unfortunately saw it a little bit late in my preparation, so I wasn't able to do much of a deep dive into each of these teams, how they look now. I was able to look up their records from last year, which is not the greatest way, but it gives you a ballpark.
Yeah.
Because teams can lose players, whatnot, especially with them. I don't think they play a single major conference team in their non-conference. I think they can, because there's the Diamond Head Classic or whatever it's called. Washington State's, I believe, or I think it's Washington State that's in that. I think Washington State is in that tournament thing, so maybe they can play. I didn't look too deep into that either, but most likely Utah State will not face a single major conference team, which actually makes it really difficult as far as NCAA tournament bid, because you want those on your resume. Because the few times Utah State had a really good potential at-large resume, like the year they were the number 8 seed, they got the automatic bid because they won the tournament, but they would have been an at-large team, given how high they were anyway. They had several major conference wins on their resume. Utah State will have none of those this season. So the resume could look okay depending on how the Mountain West does, but it's a bunch of mid-major teams, which makes it really hard to impress the committee. It looks like they're going to play several good mid-major teams, at least based on the record last year. There's 4 teams on this slate that had at least 20 wins last year. It was Utah Valley, Santa Clara, San Francisco, and Weber State. I'll be honest, that's even looking at the records, that's not the strongest list of in terms of resume teams.
Right, so let's go through this. If you haven't seen the release and you haven't seen who Utah State will play in their non-conference, because this was dropped at about 11 o'clock this morning, and then the conference schedule just a few hours later. Both of the stories about those schedules are available on CashValleyDaily.com. But here's what it looks like for USU. So bear with me. I'm going to go through the non-conference schedule first. So the Aggies will open up their season at home against Utah Valley on November 7th. Then they will host Bradley on November 11th, host Santa Clara on November 14th. They will go to San Diego, and really the only true road game of non-conference. And that's going to be on November 17th. Then they return and come back home on November 22nd to host Oral Roberts. Then it's Utah Tech, formerly Dixie State, on December 1st. They go to San Francisco. They play in the Chase Center. Cool opportunity, right? It's where the Golden State Warriors play. But they're going to face San Francisco there. And I'll get back to the who's good and whatnot, as you kind of touched on later. But
yeah,
then they have, so that's considered a neutral site game, even though it's in San Francisco. That is not where the University of San Francisco plays.
It's their backyard.
Right, it's in their town. Then they have another neutral site game. They played Loyola Marymount in Las Vegas. They come home to play Westminster, an NAIA school, on December 15th. By the way, they were in San Francisco on December 4th in Las Vegas. Don't know which venue specifically that game is at. They didn't identify that. But that'll be December 10th against Loyola Marymount. Come back home December 15th with Westminster. Host Weber State on December 19th. Then they go to Hawaii for the Diamond Head Classic. They open up against Seattle on December 22nd. And then depending on the outcome of that game, they could play either Iona or SMU on December 23rd. And then depending on that outcome and others, we don't know when they'll play or who they'll play, but we do know they will play on Christmas Day on December 25th. Could be any number of variety of different teams that are participating there. Could be George Washington, Washington State, Pepperdine, Hawaii. Those are the other schools that are there. So that's their non-conference schedule. So when I look at that, it's kind of hard, like you said, to predict how good teams this year will be at this point. But if we look at what these teams accomplished a year ago, there's only one team in all of those non-conference games that was a top 50 team last season. Only 4 who were in the top 100. So you're right. Unless they make it to somehow play Washington State, George Washington even, there really aren't very many kind of plant your pole non-conference games here on USU's schedule. San Francisco is the highlight, which that will take some people by surprise who may not follow college basketball. That's not a traditional modern-day power. But last year, they finished 26th in the NCAA net rankings.
Yeah, they've done pretty well. They're in the West Coast Conference. They've had some pretty decent wins. I think a couple times they've beat BYU. I think they've caused some problems for some of the traditional guys in the West Coast Conference. Not so much Gonzaga, but St. Mary's and BYU, who's been in there for about 10 years. So, they've come on pretty well the last few years. But I think overall the fact that this non-conference schedule feels like it's built for trying to have a 12-1 non-conference schedule. They're trying to do that. And again, some of that, as I think they may understand, this team isn't nearly as good as it's been the last few years.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity to get some games under your belt to help a team who's trying to come together and get prepared before the conference season gets going.
Yeah.
There's a couple notable teams that are not on this list. BYU is not on this schedule. Neither is Utah. They've replaced those two schools with Utah Valley, Utah Tech, Weber State, and Westminster. That's your in-state schedule for Utah State this year.
Yeah, it's when you look at football, you say, why doesn't the University of Utah schedule Utah State? Well, one, it's because they're chicken. But two, it's because Utah does have a bit of a scheduling trick for football. I think they only get 3 non-conference games, if I remember correctly. Because I think they have 9 conference games, which is one more than most, I believe. I don't know if that was the case a few years ago. I don't know if it's still the case now. So it's hard for them to fit Utah State in there. They should be able to do it every now and again, but it is harder. They can't play them every year. That's just how it is. And BYU's about to face that same situation when they move to the Big 12. They've been playing Utah State every year because they have to fill up a schedule and Utah State's there. In basketball, there's no excuse. Absolutely none.
None.
Like, you're playing, you play like 10 non-conference games, give or take, or maybe closer to 12 or 13 every year. So a dozen or so non-conference games.
There's plenty of time to work that in.
Yeah. There is no excuse to not be playing in-state rivals in this way. Utah State's been playing Weber State like every year. They've played Utah Valley a decent amount, not every year, but they've played them. I don't know if they've played Dixie or Utah Tech, whatever they are, a ton.
No,
but
this would be the first time.
Yeah, but they've only just recently come up to Division I, so
right.
That's kind of part of why. So there is no excuse for this at all. It's just pure arrogance, pure I just don't want to play you. That's all it is.
Well, the word today is that BYU would be okay to play Utah State so long as that game in future series is more in BYU's favor, games in Provo versus games in Logan. And USU is like, no, we're going to go home and home. If you want to do a neutral site at Vivint, that's fine. But if you get one, we get one. And then there's a neutral site one. We've done that before. We're okay with doing that in the future. But BYU wouldn't go for that. They wanted like a 2-for-1. And USU, to their credit, it's like, no, we're not going to play that game. It's not worth it.
Yeah, and it's arrogance on the part of BYU. They want to act like they're the big cheese, and sure, they do have the upper hand in this rivalry. They do. They keep beating us even with our good teams. Craig Smith never beat BYU.
But in
been
those
a while.
years, that loss didn't hurt BYU. And so it's folly to say it never helped BYU. It just hurts them to play the Aggies. And that's just false, too. Last year, Utah State, in a little bit of a down year compared to the last several, still an NIT team, and was finished in, number 64 in the net. That's not bad. That doesn't hurt you to play a team like that.
Well, it usually ends up being what are they called? The ranks, like the 4 rank things they have for the NET, or whatever it's called. Like a level 1 win, a level 2 win.
Quads,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Utah State's like a quad 2 win, basically, usually. If you're playing them at home, maybe last year if they were at home, maybe they were quad 3. I can't remember since it changes home and away.
Well, the time that game was played last year, Utah State had beaten New Mexico State and Oklahoma and Richmond. And so Utah State's net resume was very strong.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's a helpful win. It's like, you're playing teams that are worse than Utah State. You're playing teams that are about as good as Utah State probably in any given year. Why are you not playing Utah State? Again, there's no reason to, because if you're saying, well, they're scared to lose, you could lose to any team you play, and you probably will in any given year.
I will give them credit, at least for the last several years. They have been playing Utah State. Utah has completely and totally, utterly ducked the Aggies for the last decade.
Yeah.
Totally inexcusable. Nobody seems to care or get as riled up about that.
Yeah.
Well, it always surprises me.
Because people care about BYU, and you'd think that maybe Craig Smith would start scheduling Utah State, but he's probably gotten on his high horse about having to play basically all home games at Utah.
Right. We'll play them as long as they come to the Huntsman Center.
Yeah.
No. Doesn't work that way. Utah State's not going to play that game, and they shouldn't play that game.
Yeah, so it's Utah and BYU just wanting to act like they're better, or just that they deserve these kind of, all the stuff that the higher programs get. Because Utah State will play that game with the Power 5 or major conferences, though usually they just play them at neutral sites. I don't think Utah State usually plays. Most of the major conference games they've played have been neutral sites, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a long time since a P5 program came to Logan. USC did a couple years back.
Yeah.
But it's a rare instance.
They never come here, but Utah State hasn't necessarily gone to those teams very often.
No, that's true, too.
Usually they go to some neutral site. Oklahoma was neutral site last year. When they beat LSU, was neutral site, and a few others.
Oklahoma was in the tournament.
Yeah. So, that's why the thing at Vivint made some sense. But then I think BYU and Utah didn't like that very much. Because for some reason.
Which is stupid.
Like
It was great having the 4 fan bases there in one venue. A basketball doubleheader. You got great basketball in this state.
Yeah.
Make an annual showcase. I don't understand why it's that hard.
Yeah. It wasn't the greatest system, but it worked given the fact that Utah and BYU want to play this, we're so much better than everyone else game. And Utah State and Weber just want to play their in-state rivals and get good games. But it's ruined because we want to have this stupid attitude about scheduling. And that's what's kind of ruining college basketball and college football, is we don't care about the things that made these sports great in the first place.
Yeah.
The fandoms, the rivalries, regional rivalries, they're just being thrown out the window, and it's basically becoming the NFL and NBA.
It's greed.
Everyone for themselves, make as much money as possible, screw everything else. We're just going to do us.
Speaking of greed, we're going to take a break. Let our sponsors.
We got to make some money.
The sponsors get a word in. We'll continue talking about the schedule, looking at the non-conference and the conference schedule for Utah State men's basketball released today. Go back and check it out and see for yourself on Cache Valley Daily. I've posted a lot of things on my Twitter feed today about it. But still more to break down and get your reactions as well. We've got a lot of texts coming through. We'll get to those. Stick around. More to come here on the Full Court Press.
A diamond is forever and is perfect to represent your love. For those special occasions, give her a natural, one-of-a-kind diamond as unique as she is. Our exclusive brand, Neat and Brilliant Diamonds, is both beautiful and affordable with quarter-carat diamonds starting at $499. We have hundreds of sparkling diamonds at our integrity price guarantee with financing available. An investment for generations to come, Monday through Saturday 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
Cache Valley is growing. If you're new to the area or here for school, you should pick up a free copy of the Best of Northern Utah magazine. That's where you'll find the area's top businesses, voted on by our local community. Any service or product you might need, you'll find it in the Best of Northern Utah magazine. Pickup locations are throughout Cache Valley. For a location near you, visit bestofnorthernutah.com. Our local businesses are the heart of our community, so please support all of our business community by shopping local.
Best of Northern Utah.
Hi, this is Rusty Allen with LSS Insurance. I get asked all the time, do I have to sign up for Medicare? Check out our website, lssins.com, or call 752-9493. Medicare doesn't have to be confusing. We have the answers to all your questions and will help each step of the way. With decades of experience, we'll guide you through each step. There is no cost to work with LSS Insurance. We make Medicare easy. Call 752-9493.
It's time for the big hunt. But what do you do after you bag your trophy game? This is Jay from Daryl's Appliance. We have several freezers in stock for you to store your big game harvest, including a Frigidaire 20 cubic foot upright freezer in white for only $9.89. Hurry, stock is limited. See store for details. Daryl's Appliance Service and Sales west on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
See Daryl's Appliance in beautiful downtown Benson.
DD Auto and Salvage is going to pay you the most for junk vehicles. You can get rid of your junk vehicles today. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204.
Today. See store for details.
It's the Full Court Press, weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker here on the Full Court Press. Feel free to chime in. Utah State basketball schedule released today. 435-339-0321. Both the non-conference and the conference schedule dropped today for USU men's basketball. We'll get through some of the notes, some of the observations there, but want to get through some of your texts as well. 7966 says, any updates regarding Auburn's interest in John Hartwell as their new AD? Hope he stays at USU.
So the one small update is that Hartwell was he was on an Alabama radio station earlier today, basically, and he was asked about it. It's weird that he was on a radio station earlier today, that he would do that. Usually you try not to be super public when you're maybe about to be poached, but I guess he doesn't care.
He has actively campaigned for other positions.
Yeah, and
so
here,
it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and here when he was asked, he said he, quote, would absolutely listen if Auburn called, basically. So basically saying, if they call, I'll definitely listen. So
I mean, it's just like football. If you or if your head coach should have even a basketball team or a football team and a Power 5 school comes calling, and you're at a Group of 5 school, yeah, you would take the call.
Yeah. It's just weird that he says it out loud. That's the thing, is normally it's like every coach is like, oh, I'll stay here, and, you know, I love it here, and the fans, and go down the list of all the PR stuff to say. They don't say the quiet part out loud. John Hartwell did, which is the weird part.
Yeah.
Which, as I said, he's done that in the past. I've not exactly followed his escapades in the past. So it is a little weird for me just to see, like, oh, you said that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see how it is.
Yeah, he has openly campaigned in the past for other jobs. Moving on. 9758 would be an epic Christmas if the Aggies make the Hawaii Bowl. Boy, wouldn't that be something? I mean, it's okay if they make the Hawaii Bowl. I mean, they should be shooting for something better. But to have football and men's basketball happening in the same area within days of each other?
Yeah, it would be interesting.
That'd be great. Athletics would love that.
Athletics would love that.
Bring a lot of Aggie fans to the islands.
At the risk of being a Debbie Downer, I have a huge problem with college athletics happening around or on Christmas because some people end up having to work. My brother missed his first Christmas with his wife, their first year as a couple, because he had to go play in the band at a Utah State bowl game. They wouldn't let him bring his wife. All the athletics people got to bring their families. So I'm not very happy with the concept because it ruins Christmas for a lot of people in terms of family togetherness.
That's true, and it's a big holiday, right? That a lot of people come together for.
Yeah.
I don't know what the viewership numbers are on the Hawaii Bowl. I haven't. I need to go back and look at that, but I can't imagine that it's very, very well received on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
A lot of people are doing a lot of other things on Christmas Eve.
Well, I mean, it can be a great thing for fans because they can go with their families to the games.
Right, that's true.
So it's great for just about everyone except the people who have to work it. And maybe I'm also bitter because I may be part of that. I'll have to work Christmas Day.
That's true. We could be doing a pre and post bowl game coverage.
And as much as I love this job, guys, I love my family more than this job. So
take the AP story.
So, like I said,
be happy with it.
At the risk of being a Debbie Downer, I have some problems with Christmas games.
But there is a convergence there where it would be a possibility for Utah State football and basketball to be playing at the same time at a pretty unique venue. I mean, that is kind of cool. We do have to recognize that.
That being said, if that happens, please send me to Hawaii. I'll sell my.
All that being said,
I'll sell that. Also, all my principles for a trip to Hawaii, guys.
I'll make the trip if I have to.
Such a sacrifice.
I know. Take one for the team.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there for Christmas, guys. Surf's up.
Yeah. Hang 10. 9315. If you were YBU or Utah, would you not want to play us in Logan due to the fact that the win would help you more?
One would think, but they're afraid of losing in Logan, which is weird because neither BYU or Utah has lost in Logan for a while. Utah because they haven't played in Logan for a while, but BYU's rolling on like 3 or 4 straight victories in Logan. So I don't know what their problem is.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I think they're too big for their britches.
They are too big for their britches.
Yes. So the non-conference schedule, looking at Utah State, it was released today. Like I said, one team in the top 50 where they finished in the net this last year. 4 that were in the top 100. If you compare that to last year, again, this is not exactly the best comparison because these are all based off last year. I don't have the numbers of where these teams were in the year before, leading up to the 21-22 season for USU. But if you look at the teams USU faced last year, where they ended up, 3 were in the top 50, 6 were in the top 100.
That's their non-conference?
In the non-conference.
Yeah.
So by where teams finished last year's non-conference schedule was much stronger for the Aggies than what this year's is projecting to look like. But I think you're right. I think the point that you made earlier on, just to circle back to this looks like a non-conference schedule that's built around a team that needs time to find itself and a team that needs to pick up some momentum going into conference play. And by the way, that conference play for USU begins New Year's Eve. Speaking about holidays, the Aggies will open up their conference schedule on New Year's Eve night, hosting Fresno State.
Yeah, I'm not as bothered about that one. It's not Christmas or Thanksgiving. So I think, looking at last year, I think their non-conference schedule, if I'm doing the math right in my head, they finished 10-6. I think because they were 8-10 in conference, 18-16 overall. So I think that comes out to a 10-6 non-conference record. Could be similar this year. Again, it's tricky because we don't know which of these teams are going to be better or worse. And as I said, some of these mid-major teams can flip on a dime whether or not they're good or bad. A lot more so than some major teams.
Right. Well, will Santa Clara and San Francisco be as good as they were last year? They were kind of surprises in the West Coast.
Yeah, because if they lost players, which I haven't been able to go check and see if they did lose players, it's like Utah State. They've kind of gone downhill, not dramatically, but they've begun kind of a downhill slide since they lost Sam Merrill and Miyashketa. And now they've lost Justin Bean, so that could continue unless somebody steps up this year, which that's kind of why I'm worried, is I don't see anybody potentially stepping up. So, but given that their non-conference schedule is a lot easier, this is kind of the point I was starting to make, they could finish similar in terms of non-conference record, 10-6, maybe slightly better. Again, it'll depend on how well these guys gel together, but a winning record with this kind of weaker non-conference schedule is very possible, even if they're not a super good team. So, be wary. If Utah State's doing as well as they were last year, they could end up, they had a losing record in conference last year. Things could go really rough if this team doesn't have a couple of surprises on their roster.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed. And I think the other thing too, last year they were traveling all over. Right? They were in North Carolina. They were at the Pentagon. South Dakota? They were in the Central and Eastern time zones. A couple of different times they went up to the Naval Academy. So there were a lot of games that were not a lot, but there were a number of games in the Central and Eastern time zones. This year, the furthest west that they're going to go is in conference play when they go down to Albuquerque. And when they play in Fort Collins. No, they actually won't play in Fort Collins. Yes, they will play in Fort Collins. But they in Laramie, that's as far west as they will go. Excuse me, far east as they will go.
Yeah, they'll stay.
They stay in the Mountain and Pacific time zones. They do have the tournament that they're going to play in Hawaii.
Yeah, they'll go really far west.
But travel outside of that game around Christmas time, that tournament around Christmas time, most of the travel is a lot closer to home for USU this year.
Yeah. So it'll be easier on their bodies. It'll be easier in terms of the on-court opponent. So they could do well in non-conference. Kind of like what sometimes happened to Utah State's women's basketball team. They've been a struggling program, but they've had some times where they do all right in non-conference, but they're playing cupcake opponents in a lot of cases. Then they got roughed up in conference play, sometimes only winning 1 or 2 games. And so it could be a less extreme version of that with the men's team this year, where they're going to play a lot softer schedule, so maybe they'll have a decent record, but that could end up being deceptive.
Maybe a bit fool's gold.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some teams on here that will challenge them. Again, these are mid-majors, so it can swing dramatically from one year to the next. But the San Francisco game, Santa Clara, those could be challenging. But
Loyola's been good in the past.
Loyola's had moments where they weren't good last year. They were 209 in the net last year.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some games that could be interesting for USU to test them. There's a number of games here that will allow USU to get their feet underneath them. But really, it's about trying to prepare to be a better Mountain West Conference opponent. I think that's what they're trying to become.
Yeah, and this could help them. Like I said, if there are guys who are able to get in rhythm, they've got the couple of guys I'm hoping will be surprises. Mason Falslev, but he's a freshman coming off 2 years of basically not playing basketball probably, or very little. He's a guy I'm hoping can be really good, but it's hard to get really good freshmen here at Utah State. We had one a few years back, and he's now in the NBA. So, Nimish Keta was a rare example of a true freshman just walking in here and being really great. Maybe Mason can be that. He kind of has to be if Utah State's going to be really
as
good.
A freshman.
Yeah, but he was only okay. Like, he was a decent player. He wasn't leading anybody, which is almost what Mason would have to do. Or you can maybe Rylan Jones, who, he's now 3 or 4 years into his career, and he's been about the same player, a decent starting point guard. Steve Nashworth, kind of similar. They've got a lot of decent players. Who's the star? Who's leading them? Who's making big impacts instead of just pulling their weight and every now and again having a statistically above average game?
Right. Like Taylor Funk, is he going to make that big difference as a transfer?
Yeah, he's another guy that's like your top-level role player. If you stick him into a big role, he'll put up some numbers, but iffy on the true impact. Not the same as the Justin Bean, Sam Merrill, Keta, and some of the other great players we've had.
Right. And what kind of an evolution or growth takes place with Bairstow and with Shulga? So there's some significant questions around this team. I think it'll be a competitive team. I'm not going to say they're going to be at the top of the Mountain West.
Yeah, they won't be bad.
They're not. Yeah, they won't be bad, but they won't be at the top.
Yeah, unless somebody makes a jump that the kind of jump that we just can't predict, the one we're not going to see coming, the one that Justin Bean made like when he first came in, not the one from when he first played like in that Mountain West tournament. That when he became a starter, that jump was actually kind of predictable. But like him just appearing out of nowhere, where was that supposed to come from? Nobody saw that coming. But somebody's got to make an unpredictable jump for this team to be really good, right. And that's something I just can't predict. I just have to hope it happens. I can't tell you where it's going to happen. That's why I called it an unpredictable jump. We just have to hope somewhere somebody's going to do something.
All right, more to discuss, more to get from you. We just barely touched on the conference schedule that was released. We'll touch on some of those significant games on the schedule for USU, what the home schedule looks like for the Aggies. That's coming up in about 3.5 minutes from now. But the weather's been hot this week. And it's still going to be hot for the next couple of days, like near record or breaking record temperatures. And that can be tough on your car. So make sure you have the right oil in your vehicle to make sure it runs like it should. So take it into Valvoline Instant Oil Change. We have Valvoline Synthetic and Valvoline Max Life Oil, and they'll get you back out on the road quickly. They're at 695 North Main in Logan, just right across from Angie's.
This is The Herd. Attention listeners. With Colin Cowherd.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo has now become the most underrated player in the NFL by a mile. Colin, he can't stay healthy. So let's attack that narrative. He played 15 of 17 games this year. 15 of 17, plus 3 playoff games.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
Wow.
Weekdays from 10 to 1 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Hi, this is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. At White Pine, we value compassion, integrity, and service. We are committed to serving you and treating your family as our family. We will be here when you need us most, to listen, to help, and to provide exactly what your circumstances require. At White Pine, we promise to dedicate our time and attention to you and your family. We invite you to come by and meet us. We're confident you'll feel a difference.
We are Aegis Home Health and Hospice. Aegis, A-E-G-I-S. Our home is your home. We are more than an organization of healthcare professionals. We are proud members of our community. Compassionate, quality patient care is our mission. I am Jason Jones. I'm a proud member of the Aegis team. At Aegis, we're dedicated to character, experience, and trust. Aegis Home Care and Hospice. We will ensure you experience the difference. 435-723-9000 or find us at myaegis.com.
Don't get caught without power after a windstorm or a major winter freeze. Golden Spike Electric offers Generac backup generators so you can be prepared and keep your home warm while avoiding frozen pipes. Golden Spike Electric is one of the largest Generac dealers around, so you know it'll be installed right. Whether you're a homeowner or an electrician, contact Golden Spike Electric to rest easy the next time the power goes out. Online at gsegenerators.com or call 435-257-3016. They also service other models.
The new Santo Taco Logan is open, now with a fresh look and a family-friendly atmosphere. You must try their Al Pastor Taco, marinated pork on a corn or flour tortilla that'll make your mouth water. Or try Santo Taco's signature carne asada nachos, chips smothered with cheese and grilled steak, topped with pico de gallo, sour cream, and jalapenos for a little kick. Whatever you try, you can't go wrong. Santo Taco, now open at 880 South Main, Logan. To find out more or place an order online, go to santotacos.com.
Breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Had to wait for the big guitar and drums there.
You jamming out to the music now? It's normally me that's like dancing over here.
I know, that's right. 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in. Later on in the show today, we're going to hear from Gervin Hall and Robert Briggs. Their reactions to Game 1 for Utah State football and getting ready for Alabama this week. We'll also hear from Rob Nielsen. He's the head coach of the Utah State women's volleyball program. He'll be joining us in about 12, 13 minutes. So at least that's what we're anticipating. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Volleyball off to a great start. Big wins last week and on their way to a big tournament this weekend in Provo. But 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in. A lot of discussion here about Utah State basketball. And 8968 weighs in. The non-conference schedule somewhat sounds a lot like Rod Tueller put it. This is called positive scheduling.
Yeah, that's
positive scheduling.
One way to put that. Okay. You're giving yourself a better record than maybe you deserve based on playing teams that aren't as good or aren't as prestigious, I guess. So we'll see. And they're going to be easier athletes. Like when you play the major conferences, the trick with them sometimes that you're playing really good athletes. Whereas, the smaller conferences, they're sometimes as skilled as some of the major conference guys, but they're not as athletic.
Utah State will face West Coast Conference schools, or 4 West Coast Conference schools, I should say, 3 schools from the WAC, and then a variety of other conferences: Missouri Valley, the Summit League, Big Sky. So there's a variety of different conference schools that Utah State will face. But interesting that 4 West Coast Conference teams on USU's schedule.
But not a certain West Coast Conference team that's in the state of Utah.
One notable absentee. Quickly, the conference schedule, as I said, begins December 31st against Fresno State. Some of these games could be changed, like the dates could be altered slightly based on national TV. Because they've set the conference schedule. Now TV partners get a chance to see what games they want to feature. But as of right now, New Year's Eve against Fresno State in Logan. Aggies go on the road for a couple of games at Air Force and Boise State. Come back home on January 10th against Wyoming. Back on the road at Nevada. January 14th. January 17th versus UNLV. January 21st against San Jose. On the road to take on San Diego State and Fresno State. That's a tough 2-game stretch. January 24th and 28th.
Yeah, that one stood out to me as a tough back-to-back.
Return home to face New Mexico for the only time in the conference slate on January 31st. Travel to Fort Collins to take on Colorado State on February 4th, the only time they'll face the Rams. Return home on February 7th to host the Aztecs. San Jose State on the road, February 11th. Home games against Air Force and Nevada on February 14th and 18th, respectively. At Wyoming on February 21st. At UNLV, February 28th. And then finish off the conference schedule at home, March 4th against Boise. So the other note there is that tough 2-game stretch in the end of January at San Diego and Fresno. But the other interesting note for me is that they play Boise nearly at the beginning of the schedule and at the end of the schedule, just to bookend it. And those both could be really interesting matchups.
Yeah, they could be. And overall, just the schedule, nothing too much stands out. You have a good mix of, back-to-back home games, back-to-back away games. Nothing too extreme, which is a sign of, good scheduling. I'll get a better look at it later to see, maybe they're playing some tough teams a little too close together. We mentioned San Diego State, Fresno State's kind of one of those. But it looks like a fairly well-balanced schedule for Utah State. Nothing too tricky.
Well, that could be a pretty tough stretch. January 24th through February 7th at San Diego, at Fresno, at home against New Mexico, at Colorado State, at home against San Diego State.
Yeah, so I guess that's
that's a brutal couple of weeks.
So I guess that's a little tricky.
Wedged in right in the middle of your conference schedule.
Yeah, that could be. That's probably the worst stretch of the season, but at least there's only one of them.
It's true. All right, another quick timeout. Love to continue to get your thoughts about the USU basketball schedule release today. 435-339-0321. Napa Auto Parts stays stocked up on the things that you need, and they've got 5 different locations between Preston and Providence. To find the parts that you need, that's Napa Auto Parts.
Are you a small business owner? Who's your bank? This is Bruce Rigby. I want to invite you to bank with us at Cache Valley Bank. We specialize in helping small business, and we have great people. That's the Cache Valley Bank difference. Decisions made locally, without all the red tape, by people who care and know how to help small business. Cache Valley Bank, growing, expanding, and proud to have our roots firmly planted in Cache Valley. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Elements has delicious lunch specials, 2 for $30, or the new soup, salad, and bread special for just $10. It's tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items prepared with a personal touch. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecue chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite Munster burger. Casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9 p.m. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations today.
Have you thought about your furnace lately? Of course not. It's hot outside. Now's a great time to start thinking about replacing it or having it serviced for fall and winter. Advanced Heating and Air will help you get some of the industry's best rebates on a new high-efficient York furnace installed in your home. Or one of Advanced Heating and Air's service professionals can service your furnace for the upcoming winter season. Call today, 752-7272, or schedule a free estimate at advancedheating-ac.com. York, install confidence.
Northern Utah and Southern Idaho's home for sports. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Coming up next hour, stick around. We're going to have Rob Nielsen, the Utah State women's volleyball coach, joining us here just a few minutes away. We'll hear from Gervin Hall. We'll hear from Robert Briggs, Utah State football players. Had a chance to catch up with them after practice yesterday. What do they have to say about game number 1 in the stadium with fans in attendance? And shifting their attention to Alabama and trying to predict how that might go and staying focused. So interesting conversations with them coming up. But big story also today, Utah State men's basketball officially releasing their non-conference and conference schedules. And you can see more about it on CacheValleyDaily.com. And this is really, it looks like a non-conference schedule built for Utah State to get their feet underneath them, get some momentum before they get into conference play, because San Diego State should be good again. Fresno State should be good again. UNLV could be on improving a little bit. Colorado State, big questions there now that Roddy is gone. But Wyoming was a surprise team a year ago. So the Mountain West Conference, Nevada could be interesting too. There's some good basketball happening in this conference, and USU needs to get themselves figured out before they get into good conference play.
Yeah, a lot of these teams are trending up. Even Nevada, who took a bit of a nosedive, they're coming back up. And, a lot of teams, if they're not like really good, they're at least pretty decent. The Wyomings, maybe the Colorado States, Nevadas, UNLVs. There's going to be a lot of good teams and a few great teams. And so if you're not a good or great team, like last year Utah State was a good team, so they finished okay. If they're not a good or great team, they're in big trouble.
And I could even see New Mexico improving and being more of a challenge this year.
Yeah, they're probably going to be another solid team. So, Utah State might need to get their feet under themselves to be, a good or great team.
So the schedule opens November 7th for Utah State. Stick around, more to discuss here on the Full Court Press next hour.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. When it comes to the NFL Draft, everybody likes to pretend they're an expert. Every year we hear fans criticizing team selections, but yesterday, Cutdown Day, was a friendly reminder of how unpredictable the draft can be. Back in 2018, UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen looked like a pro-ready prospect. He was replaced after just 1 year in Arizona with Kyler Murray and was cut by the Cleveland Browns yesterday. 2021, the Raiders selected Alabama tackle Alex Leatherwood. At the time, many people believed taking the tackle at 17 was a reach, but he was still a highly rated prospect. Leatherwood was cut yesterday. Making the transition from college to the pros has never been easy. Players fail to mirror their success in college all the time. But every year, we still hear fans criticizing and celebrating selections. The reality is nobody really has any idea how these careers will shape out. And yesterday's Cutdown Day was that not-so-subtle reminder of exactly that. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.